Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wednesday Build. This is episode 1.23, and today we'll be discussing the topic, I have confidence in systems, and I'm working on adding me, featuring what I'm learning in Upfront's Bond 7 course. My name is Brittany Hernandez. You can call me the B emoji or B or peanut or brittle as you like, as my dad and my uncle like to call me. I'm from San Diego, California, but I live in London now. I am a veteran of the U.S. Coast Guard. I served on active duty for 4 years as a boatswain's mate, second class petty officer in Puerto Rico and Alaska. I'm also a lawyer, the founder and CEO of a company called Kamam Kamai LLC. I have a master's degree in international film business. I was the business development and partner engagement executive at a legal tech startup called Vala. I also worked as a Gavel expert and a no-code, low-code developer, formerly with Gig Law, but now I do it as more freelance. I'm also the global ambassador to law schools for Gavel, formerly Document. I'm the program director and senior instructor of the recent Law Students in Legal Tech Access to Justice Fellowship, which is through Gavel as well. And I'm the founder, course creator, and senior instructor of Kamam Academy, where we have Gavel certification courses and more. I'm the creator and host of the Lightning Talks for Legal Innovators series in partnership with Gavel, as well as the creator of this series, the Wednesday Build, and the free interactive digital magazine called Code Word Hex, as well as the newsletter called the Tuesday Forecast, as well as the founder of Kamam Retreats, where once a year we have different high achieving women and female founders from all over the world that come together, connect with each other, learn from each other, and grow our businesses. So today we're going to be discussing, as I mentioned, the topic, I have confidence in systems and I'm working on adding me. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this is I recently started the Upfront Bond 7 course, which I'm really excited about. It's something that only happens once a year, and it's with Lauren Curry. And I had been following Lauren for a while. So I just wanted to highlight what we're learning, and obviously without giving too much away, but to just kind of really hone in on what I've learned so far, and it's only day 4. So as I mentioned, the first part of this is I have confidence in systems. So the reason why I wanted to start with this conversation around systems is because I struggle a lot with this idea of perfectionism. And it's something that has been with me through my whole life, and I get anxiety around it. It affects relationships, it affects my work and my anxiety levels. So I just think it's really important to recognize that a lot of the time, people like me, which can be often in the legal community as well, as in law school, we're taught to be perfect all the time, that when you have something like perfectionism in your life as part of your personality or your upbringing, nature versus nurture, or whatever else, what happens with those types of people is they tend to find their confidence in over preparedness. So in the sense that if I prepare in advance everything that I'm going to say word for word, and if I'm able to over prepare, then I'm going to be able to be more confident going into it. So that's a reliance on kind of, in a way, external preparation versus internal, like who I am as a person, having confidence in that. And I think there's a bit of a distinguishing factor between these 2 points and where you draw confidence from. Because I think that there's obviously a good aspect to over preparing or preparing for something that's important or some kind of event or speech or whatever else. But I think that when we find our validation and we find our confidence from those systems of over preparedness, that my default setting is to over prepare in order to be confident, then I think that kind of takes us away from the real issue, which would be to have confidence within our own selves, and who we are as a person, and being okay with who we are and where we are in our lives right now, and always constantly improving. So for someone like me, I always am reading different personal development books, which is good. And I'm not saying that any of these things are bad. I'm just saying that where we draw our confidence from matters, because one will be maybe taking away energy, and one might be energy giving. So in my particular case, sometimes with over preparation and kind of this need to be perfect all the time, and creating systems that make it to where if I it's kind of like rituals and almost in a way of superstition. Like if I put in this particular amount of effort and I follow this ritual and system, I should have this outcome. But sometimes when I have such rigorous systems, it can be energy draining. So when I say that, a lot of my confidence can come from if I wake up at 5:30 and I do work for an hour and then I do exercise for an hour and then I, rest and I do all these things, then I will have this outcome of a perfect body and I will be very good at my work and I will be, very successful in my business or whatever. But sometimes what happens is life and energy. And a lot of the time, then I'll lose confidence in myself if I haven't carried out the system that I've put in place to give myself that confidence. So it's a kind of this weird cycle and connection between this trying to carry out a system and trying to have confidence in that versus having confidence in myself and allowing mistakes to happen, or allowing myself a little bit of leeway to not be perfect all the time. So back in November of 2022, I wrote this article called "I Used My Therapy Budget to Buy My Upfront Bond 7C, Here's Why." And at the time, so in that year of 2022, it was the start of the year was pretty hard for me. And I was just struggling with a lot of anxiety and I was having panic attacks a lot. And it was really affecting my work, my relationships with people at work, my relationship with my partner, and my relationship with myself. And I do feel like over the past year, it's been a struggle to just kind of have to reconnect with myself, reconnect with what I'd like to do, reconnect with my core. And with that process, throughout that process, I was kind of listening to Lauren Curry's podcasts and like reading the newsletters and blog posts and etc. And I just felt like if she was able to help me in 15 minutes listening to her podcast in season 1 with things like the one on Let's Talk About Money, which was very helpful, and lots of different episodes, I wonder what her course would look like. So with this course, it actually also reminded me so far of this YouTube video I recently saw about, it's a TED Talk about depression, actually. Whew, sorry, I'm outside and there's some bugs around. So in this, there was this one, I'm just going to try to find it really quick. Let's see if we can find it. There's this guy, I think it's this one. I think it's this one. So I highly recommend this particular talk. He talks about how he went through periods of depression and so on. But one of the things he says is he kind of talks about the difference between using chemical alterations in like medicines for treating depression versus kind of more environmental ways of addressing depression. And he talks about how like a lot of what's the cause is an unmet need. So around things like having a tribe. So he talks about how we're a very tribal species. And that was one of the things that differentiates us from, let's say, other animals or in the animal kingdom, is that we come together and form tribes and we take care of each other, and that can be physically, emotionally, and like sharing resources, protecting each other, forming communities and so on. And he says something very interesting in here where he talks about how we're also the first kind of species to consciously uncouple ourselves, you could say, or consciously disband our own tribes. So I thought that was a really interesting phraseology to say like, we're consciously doing that by moving more and more and more online and away from our communities and becoming more and more isolated. So a lot of this depression comes from loneliness. And so from this idea that we're, as a species, spending less time together. So one of the things that helps, and I think there's a link between depression and confidence in the sense that when you're not feeling well, you don't want to see anyone. And when you don't want to see anyone, you get more lonely. And then you get more lonely, you feel less confident. And then it kind of like turns into this cycle where you get more and more and more isolated. So with this kind of idea, I think one of the good things about my involvement with Bond 7 is really around that community piece. So it is an online course, but it's interesting because it's really more of an exercise in regrouping our tribe, right? Because we are often, especially as people who are business owners or entrepreneurs, that we tend to be alone quite a lot. So in my case, for example, I'm often by myself in my room, recording videos, talking, sending emails, etc. So I'm not around people that often. And so that's why I tend to like to come outside and do work outside as much as I can, because I feel like I get to be part of the world rather than just spending my whole life in my room, which causes a lot of anxiety for me and makes me feel claustrophobic. So what I've done is I've tried to find a way to reconnect with community through a course like this, where everyone is working on the same thing. We're all working towards the same goal of boosting our confidence and just kind of like getting to know new people. So some of the things that I've learned so far from the course is really just that first piece, which is around community and the importance of connection and being around people who are trying to do the same things that you're trying to do, but also offering different perspectives along the way. So in this case, for example, they match you kind of into different groups. So that makes it to where you're able to have kind of friends along the way. They also have something called community architects, which makes it to where they're kind of going through and making sure that everyone feels welcome and seen and heard, which is really nice. So I think that that's something we can learn from the way that Upfront is structured, is that it's a very focused on making sure everyone in the course feels seen and heard, and I think that's definitely come through. So I definitely feel supported, and the other ladies that I've been grouped with also are very supportive, and we're kind of helping each other along the way. The other thing that I've learned so far from the course is actual tips about how to increase your confidence through things like language, body posture, breath, and so on. The first real change I've seen so far has been my awareness of language. So one of the kind of recommendations is to kind of eliminate the words adjust and actually, and how you phrase things that makes it to where it wouldn't be a question at the end, for example. So going down instead of up at the end of your sentences makes it to where you sound more authoritative. So it's been really interesting to see that come up in conversations with my friends, for example, where even just the other day, I was walking with my friend and she was telling me about a scenario where she was on a phone call or the person answered the phone and she said, "Oh, it's just me. It's just," let's say like it's just my name, for example. "It's just Brittany." And her mom said to her, "I didn't name you just Brittany. Your name is Brittany." So I just thought that was a really good anecdote to remind us that you're not just anything. You are who you are. And that's a beautiful, important thing. So I think that's one of the things that I've also learned too, is there's kind of this chapter here on like, you are extraordinary. And I think that's helpful to, as a reminder that no one is like you in the whole world, that no one has ever, and I've said this before, no one has ever lived your private moments except you and whoever else was with you in that private moment. So and then your collection of those linked together makes you who you are. So you have something that is really important and unique to offer the world, and your voice is important. So it's really been interesting to kind of couple all these different things together and to kind of help determine and decide, who you are, how you want to show up in the world, and how you can do that with a little bit of help from some of these tips. Today, for example, I shared with my partner one of the lessons on voice. And so this idea that we have different types of voices and when we should use one or the other gut mind, your voice, your gut voice, and your heart voice. And so there's definitely some practical tips in here that I am learning about and trying to implement throughout my day and as I'm kind of doing different things. So I'm also thinking a lot about how I can revamp my courses, revamp my business, and kind of change my approach to be more effective and more valuable for the people I'm trying to serve. And I think one of the things that really shines through is this idea of service and really trying to come from that place of love, service, and understanding that you're here to help others and that kind of ability to share your light with the world. So I highly recommend that you watch this one. I highly recommend that you get involved in kind of the upfront community and start to learn about how you can show up in the world as your true authentic self. So I'm going to have this one be a lot shorter today, just because we had Legal Growth Geek yesterday and today has been a bit rough as well. So I just wanted to share a few thoughts about what I've been learning, but I'm really excited to let you know about what we're going to be talking about next week. So if you have any questions, just reach out and I'm happy to answer any questions about the bond, about what I've been learning, and so on. So next week, we're going to be talking about, I'm going to go ahead and go to this slide for a second. We're going to be talking about building scalable legal apps, starting scoping and launching ideas you can sell. And the reason for this is something that I talk about a lot is how to use Gavel as an app builder. But I think a lot of people have a hard time starting with what their idea should be. And I found this a lot when I was working with my fellows. So there's a module that I do with the fellows about how to develop your ideas, how to scope your ideas down, how to build an MVP, how to launch, thinking about niche audiences, and what your strategy would be for your launch. So just a few announcements before we wrap up. This has been the Wednesday build. It's a bit shorter today just because honestly, I'm just tired. And I think that today I just wanted to kind of show you and kind of express some of the gratitude I have for the course that I'm in right now around confidence. You'll see that the structure of the Wednesday build will change a little bit to be more on the side of being useful for people who are trying to build applications and giving practical advice and tips along the way of how to do that. So you'll see some shifts in how this will be structured and what the content will be. Also look out for Code Word Hex, which comes out every Tuesday. The Tuesday forecast comes out every Tuesday as well, with some different community events that are coming up. We do have a brand new certification course for Gavel that I just relaunched on Tuesday at 3:30 in the morning. I guess it was Wednesday, 3:30 in the morning, my time. So we have a brand new introduction to Gavel or Gavel Basics course that you should check out. And then we also have courses in Software and Airtable, Go Full Page, and more to come. You can also join us with the Cormiam Global Community, which you get automatically added to no matter which course you sign up to. And then also Gavel has its own Slack group that you can join, which is very active. So we'll be together next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. I am going to be going to the AI Summit and the London Tech Week next week. So if I have to change it around, I will let you know. But our topic will be building scalable apps, starting scoping and launching ideas you can sell. So I hope you don't mind that I was outside today. It's so lovely. So I'll just show you quickly what it looks like. So it's such a beautiful day. I would encourage you to get outside, get some fresh air, work from outside for at least one day in the week if you can. And I'm wishing you a great rest of your week.